men have had the planet for fucking centuries, bro. Back the fuck up, dial it down. Your time is over for all the toxicity and the selfishness and the disconnection from oneness. The toxic separation is over. The spiritual war, if you want to really break it down, the spiritual war we're in is toxic separation masculinity versus feminine oneness. That's what the spiritual evil versus good. It's really a toxic, dark, masculine separation versus the feminine. It is a God world, male-centric God, where we dominate and own and rape and pillage and all the things that we do, compared to goddess world of oneness. It is God versus goddess. And guess what? When it's God versus goddess, God is always going to fucking lose, because it's a made-up entity of bullshit and lies. Goddess will always prevail. Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode. Hello, magnificent beings and divine souls. Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Rachel Fiori, but I also have our other co-hosts here with me today, Danny Morley and Ellie Lee. Welcome, magnificent beings.
I am excited to learn today.
Yeah. Lots to talk about. Fascinating topic.
Yeah, thank you. This is such a great topic. And I think we are going to, this is so educational. So we're going to dive right in, and we have a part 1 and a part 2. So let's get to it. Let's talk about what divine masculine energy really is and what divine feminine energy really is. Let's start to truly get educated about this, and then start to really understand how that affects us in our everyday lives and our relationships, what we create in the world, what we experience in the world, and also to understand that, you know, as mentioned many times by us here at MSU, and especially by myself, we live in the upside down world, and we're here to put it, you know, right side up. That we literally live in a backwards, sideways, upside down world that makes absolutely no sense. And here's the game that we all incarnated into. How do we figure it out and set everything back into oneness? How do we reset into oneness? And part of that is through education. If you're in ignorance, how are you going to reset anything to something different? You're just repeating the same old stuff. And here's part of how we want to end that cycle of repeating the same old garbage in the upside down patriarchal world of separation. And when we say divine masculine is separation, what the hell does that mean? What the hell does that even mean? So here's the first part of the teaching. Okay. So this is really critical to understand before you can understand about feminine being oneness and divine masculine being separation, but separation in a divine way. Don't worry, we'll get to that. We have to understand about the Trinity. Now, I've talked about the Trinity before in a previous podcast. However, if it didn't sink in, it's really good to hear it again anyway, so it sinks in more deeply. But also, if you jumped into this today for the first time, you've never heard this podcast before, you need to know what the Trinity is before you can really deeply understand everything else. So let's go over that real quick. The Trinity is not in our upside down Abrahamic religion, sexist, misogynistic religion, mind control bullshit that is in our upside down world. It is not, you know, father, son, man, male centric. Everything's about man being the center of everything and blah, 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 blah. That's not what the goddamn Trinity is. Throw that in the trash, because it's just absolute false crap. It's just bullshit. It's brainwashing, mind control bullshit. That's all it is. So throw it away. What the Trinity actually is, if you imagine the source creator of all that is And one of the easiest ways to just imagine that for teaching and educational purposes is just a consciousness. It is golden white light. You can think of it like that. It is a conscious golden white light of everything that has the potentiality of literally anything and everything. Okay. So when that consciousness, when that light, we can call it, suddenly has an awareness of itself, it became self-aware. That was the first creation. That was the first manifestation. Okay. So the first arm of the Trinity is creator. Okay. Because I just created an aspect of me, but what did I create? So the first arm of the Trinity is creator, just what exists, the creator of all that is. That's the first arm of the Trinity. What is the second arm of the Trinity? The observer. Because what I just created by realizing that I am me is self-awareness. I've created a mirror that is an observer. I can now observe me. So it's like I created two of me. There's an extension of me that I, the creator, just created by becoming, quote unquote, becoming self-aware. I created an observer me. So creator is the first arm of the Trinity. Observer is the second arm of the Trinity. And if what I observe, I can also then experience. How do I experience me? How do I experience other creations that I create and manifest, that I birth from myself? I want to birth them because I get to experience them. So creator, observer, experiencer, those three, that's the Trinity. Creator, observer, experiencer. We can never understand divine masculine and divine feminine if we don't first understand that. So I want to leave that open to questions or thoughts or anything from the two of you before we go on to masculine and feminine.
It's just so funny how, we're taught it's the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, or is that what they teach out in patriarchal Holy Spirit? Yeah. It's so ridiculous, like that we get taught, oh, there's a man in the sky, and then there's the Son of God, and then the Holy Spirit, and like that's when it's got nothing to do with that.
No, absolutely nothing to do with it. And what we birth, here's the other, and we'll get into more detail about this throughout this episode and the next, but when we refer to something as the Father, it doesn't even make any sense that the Father births what you don't come from the Father, you come from the mother. Like that's the other insanity. It's just absolute insanity that we would refer to the creator of all that is as a father when fathers don't give birth. But what this gives birth to is oh, he creates everything. What do you mean he? Because she is the one that births everything into existence. You don't exist unless you've come through her, right? We'll get more into that later. But this leads us to what is the feminine versus the masculine, and not versus like in competition. Don't let your minds go there. It's not. It's just so we can understand them from an educational standpoint, because then we can integrate and start to elevate and become beings of oneness for real, right? Through the education. So the creator, source, okay? Goddess. Now we can call that goddess. Okay. And again, some of this we're going to get into later. Well, that's hypocritical. No, it isn't. Goddess includes the word God. It has both. That's oneness. God doesn't. It's just talking about fucking men. Male centric. Everything is he, men, blah, blah, blah. So it is excluding. It is separating out and making me the man, the male centric. I'm the center of the universe. Everything you believe in, everything you worship, everything you learn from, everything that every leader, man. And it's total exclusion of anything and everything else, especially feminine, woman, etc., which means you're excluding the creator herself from everything. And yet you sit here and praise God. You're not praising source when you do that. When you read from the stupid Bible and he, God, blah, that's not who you're praising or worshiping or praying to. You're actually praying to something else and the demon and Satan and all the crap, because that's the brainwashing. But maybe we'll get into that later. For the sake of the educational purposes of this episode in part 2, if we're going to refer to source as, a gender, it only makes sense and it is only accurate to refer to source. Say the creator could be gender neutral, but you can create the creator, goddess versus God. You would say she. You would refer to source energy as a she, because she represents giving birth and bringing life into existence. So it is only accurate to either say gender neutral, not refer to it as anything, or to refer to her, capital H, her, as a she. Her has the word he in it. It's inclusive. It's oneness. She has the word he in it. It is inclusive. It's oneness. That's feminine energy. Oneness, all inclusive. Almost all, pronouns or words that are referred to the feminine, the majority of them have both in them already integrated into the same damn word. So goddess has God in it, right? I mentioned she has he in it. Her has he in it, right? So when you think about the word woman or women, has the word man and men in it. It is inclusive. Even princess has the word prince in it. Like, think about this. For crying out loud, like, she is oneness, right? So when we understand the feminine is oneness, the feminine refers to the creator goddess, that is oneness. It is all inclusive of everything that she births into creation, which first she birthed an extension of herself that is the observer, that is a separate and yet in oneness aspect of her. Think about that. It's like, I birthed something that's two of me. I birthed an extension of me into existence. So it doesn't mean, now this is where it gets confusing for people. If you're only living up here, this can be hard to start to comprehend. Okay. So in oneness, I am you and you are me. And yet in oneness, the truth is, as the way of truth, we are also separate, but divinely separate, because the root of our existence is oneness. We are exactly the same consciousness. So the birthing of things that are extensions of me, source, creator, goddess, the extensions of me that I birth into creation and give life to live as separate beings, as the all, that divine separation is where divine masculine energy comes in, because it's a separation energy. Okay. It's a divine separation. It's purposeful. It's glorious. It is meant for us to have an experience in separation. Not negative, not toxic, nothing negative yet. Just the separation in and of itself, divine separation, is glorious. That's what masculine energy is. It's a beautiful, miraculous thing to have created, to have a separate me to go experience things over there. And I can experience way more things in quote unquote separation, divine separation. Okay. So when bring this divinity, this level of divinity into human form, when I as woman am creating a life, bringing a soul into my physical body in oneness, your soul becomes one with my physical body, my beingness. We are one. We are the same. You're my body. And as my body, as an extension of my body, we're going to go back to what I started with the Trinity. I, goddess, source creator, became self-aware. The second arm of the Trinity, I created an observer. I, human woman, pregnant, an extension of oneness. We start as one. And as you grow in my womb, the portal to the cosmos, the portal for souls to enter into this physical existence, they come to planet Earth through the portal of a woman's womb. You enter into my physical portal. You are one with my body, and then you become, as you grow, and I develop you, and I nurture you, and I give you the nutrients that you need to become a physical form. As I do that, as the woman, as the mother, as the creator, as the giver of life, I am creating you, and I am creating you slowly over 9 months as an extension of me, creator, observer. Okay? Creator, observer. So there's 2 arms of the Trinity. As you fully form in my womb, with an umbilical cord still attaching us together as oneness, and yet simultaneously, you've now developed into a full baby, ready, full term, ready to be birthed. We are one. We are also separate now. Physically still one. That's what the umbilical cord is for. You're still inside of my womb, my body. You're still a part of my body. You are my body, an extension of my body. So we are one, and simultaneously, there's an extension of me, which is a separation, a divine separation. And when you're ready to go experience life as your own individual, become the experiencer, I birth you and bring you into this life as a physical, separate individual being. And when I birth you and give you that life, in that separate form, you're now your own unique individual. That separation is the divine masculine part of all of creation. So who has
Beautiful.
questions?
I mean, it's just so logical. It makes so much sense when you explain it like that. But of course, like as you're explaining it, like, wow, that's obviously such a beautiful wisdom flowing through. Like, but that makes total sense. I mean, I feel like you could explain that to absolutely anyone in the world, and for them to deny that is like just beyond me. That
But
just makes so much sense.
But that's brainwashing at its finest, right?
Yes.
Where there is literally no logical sense. So as somebody that was raised in the Christian religion, right? My mom's a Bible thumper, everything. It's never crossed my mind that how can a man birth anything? Like, how can a man be creator? Why are we actually praising a father and a son? Like, there is no conversation or room for any kind of women. It doesn't exist.
Yep.
And so people are not logically thinking because they're so brainwashed from the moment that, we're given all of this, we're fed this.
Yep.
That there is no room for anything else that could be actual truth, which is insanely wild to me. And now that I've
Wow.
waken up and I'm learning this, it's like, of course that makes sense what you're teaching. And yet brainwashing, I mean, that's the magic of what brainwashing is you don't logically think at all.
Exactly.
Ugh.
And it's all right there for us to see, but
Yes.
because we don't think about, we just, we're brainwashed, as Ellie was saying.
Mhm.
I would love to. So this is something that when you first started talking about this, as you were explaining it, I was like, I could see it. So I'd love to like share what I was envisioning, and please just correct me wherever I need correction. But
Beautiful.
it was like there's a field, or you could say space, and that space is divine feminine. And then when what the divine masculine energy is when you start creating a boundary or a line within that field or space, it creates separation in the field. So the line is all what the masculine energy is, and the space that encompasses inside that area is feminine energy, which is why masculine energy is included in feminine, but it doesn't work the other way,
Doesn't
because
work the other way.
masculine energy is just the line. And
Yes.
so it's the thing that creates the separateness for us to have this experience.
Yes.
So within that, I was thinking about this, about like creating boundaries. So we're all experiencing this whole thing within our own physical self. And then we have to create these energetic boundaries of being like, I'm talking about like real life now, human life, like, no, this isn't okay. And that's this like energetic declaration that the frequency that I vibrate at here in this space is this vibration, and you can't cross that boundary because this is what I'm setting it. But if I set that boundary just from masculine energy, I'm just going straight into that line, and it's rigid and it's control. And everything obviously that you've taught us is no, the boundary has to be set from power. So when we're creating these boundaries, if we're not doing it in like accordance to oneness from our power in space, that line becomes toxic, disconnected, and it
Yes.
goes into rigid control. And then that's
There you
what
go.
leads into all of the toxicity.
You got it. That's absolutely magnificent, because think about it. Creating the boundary, the creator is feminine, goddess. The creation of the boundary is feminine, oneness. The boundary itself is then the masculine that holds that divine separation. And remember, it's always divine. Because if you're going to harm me and I say, absolutely not, like, nice try, not happening here. I'm creating the boundary with you from a divine sense of power, from the creator power. I created a boundary. That's feminine energy. That's power. We'll talk about this later. That's the protector. It's not masculine, sorry. But it's holding that boundary. The boundary itself is the separation that was created, the divine separation, and that boundary itself is the masculine energy, right? So, and you explained it beautifully. If I'm a man, if I, a man, am functioning in masculine energy in our patriarchal world of separation and duality, that's all what patriarchy is, toxic separation. It's those three things synonymous: patriarchy, toxic separation, and duality, right? When I do that, I am disconnecting from my creator. So if I am male centric, I'm excluding oneness. I am literally, I don't care how religious, God all day, every day, you pray constantly, you go to church 4 times a week. What the hell are you talking about? That doesn't mean you're in oneness. You've disconnected from the creator herself, from goddess, when you function in male centricity, because you're excluding the very thing that created you, which means you are completely excluding divine feminine creator energy from yourself, which means you have how energy works. Of course, you're the micro, you're creating that on the macro level. You're excluding it in your life, in the world. That's where everything goes to toxic separation, to the negative toxic level of what toxic masculinity is. Because again, he does not include she. He only includes he. There is no inclusion. There's no oneness there. And when we lack the oneness integration of it, so if I am a man and I'm excluding the oneness of what the truth of myself really is, then that means I can only go down a path of toxic separation, patriarchy, duality. I have to go down a path of toxicity where I'm then going to develop programs of inequality because I've already created them, because I'm not equal and balanced within myself, which is the way of equality. Right? If I'm not equal and balanced within myself and my own energies, and I lack the education, I live in ignorance. How am I living as the way of wisdom? I'm not. How am I living as a person who would never create inequality to be experienced on this planet? I'm not. I lack it within myself. I lack the way of equality. So I will then objectify, create superiority, inferiority, and all these other crazy programs where, there's always somebody that's not equal here, and dishonoring versus the way of honoring, because I'm not even honoring the creator goddess inside of me because I'm ripping her out. I'm blocking her. I'm excluding her. And I'm only allowing in all these programs of duality, separation, unconscious, patriarchal, brainwashing bullshit. How could you ever live a life that's heaven on earth when that's where you're coming from? Separation, think about when you disconnect from the true self, from divinity itself, when you're disconnected and you don't even have the wherewithal to realize you're constantly disconnecting yourself from that, how can you live a fulfilling, beautiful, harmonious life as the way of harmony? You can't. You're just creating more harm and destruction and sabotage for yourself and all others. You're creating dishonor, disharmony, right? Inequality versus harmony, honoring, equality, harmlessness and gentleness. You're creating harm, not harmlessness, etc.
Yeah, so basically we've got lost in this whole illusion of separation.
Yep.
Because it was created in the first place to have this experience, right? Because
Yes.
if it is all one, then we need and this goes back to what you were saying at the beginning, right? We need the separation to have the experience of self-awareness.
Yes.
So we need that. We need those divisions, but we've got way too lost down the separate route.
Yes.
And that has got completely imbalanced because we've disconnected from feminine energy, which is how we're seeing this on the planet. And I could, as you just shared, like I can be full testament to this. My life that I led disconnected from myself, and I'm, doing the work to get back now to that connection. It wasn't good. What I created in my life was terrible, and it led me to an extremely dark place. And the more that I wake up and do this work and awaken more and more and more, I realize the world that I grew up in that I thought was fine is extremely dark. And there is so much that I would say now completely wrong with it that we need to flip right side up.
Yep.
And I had no idea growing up that things were that bad. And obviously that's part of being a man growing up in society. We are blinded to that.
Yeah.
But I can, like, the way that we have lived growing up this way in so much separation, it does not create harmony. And I don't want to create a life like that anymore. Hello, MSU podcast listeners. This is Danny here with just a quick announcement. We are launching a 20 days, 20 ways challenge right now, where you can actually begin the process of activating and experiencing these divine frequencies, the ways of oneness taught by Rachel, in a free challenge. So if you're interested in starting to integrate and learn this work, please go over to our website, go to the university enrollment page, sign up for our free emails, and within that first week of learning about what university enrollment is, you will receive an email to access the 20 days, 20 ways activation series. It's completely free. So please go and enjoy it. Start activating these frequencies. And of course, enjoy the rest of this podcast episode. Thanks.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I mean, this is the agenda of patriarchy, right? To have created the world that we live in. I've been thinking lately, like, how can you not look around and think that this world is the most terrible place? Like, how can you deny that patriarchy and the darkness has turned this world in the way that it is? Like, if you turn a blind eye from that, I mean, that's insane. Like, you have to look around and see this is the result of patriarchy, right? And so my question to you, Rachel, is, you know, everyone I talk to is always talking about, yeah, I was in my feminine and then I, had to be in my masculine. And it's like nobody knows what feminine or masculine
Nope.
is, right? So,
Clueless.
but those words in general, right? Were they designed to throw us completely so far off of learning true education of what divine masculine and feminine is? Like, people are so confused about what those words mean because of the society that's taught us that, oh, well, feminine looks like this and masculine is like that.
Oh, of
And then
course.
people are so wrapped up in that they'll never actually learn what true divine feminine or masculine is, because they're gone with what we've been raised in this world. I mean, I can see what it's
Yep.
done to all of us. Yeah. So I just wanted to.
One, yeah, absolutely, 100%. So what divine feminine is, what divine masculine is everything we just talked about so far in the first part of this episode, right? But in society, in patriarchal brainwashing to keep us in toxic separation versus what divine separation is, yeah, it's a social construct. They're all made up bullshit, socially constructed ideas and concepts that we slap labels on of what it means to be feminine or masculine. And femininity has nothing to do with what divine feminine energy is. It isn't the feminine, that stereotype of, whether your hair is done or you wear makeup or you wear, form-fitting clothes to show your figure and you're sensual. None of that is fucking divine feminine energy. None of it. It's all fucking bullshit. It's made up brainwashing bullshit in order to keep women as sex objects for men's pleasure. That's it. That's all it's for, right? Breasts are not here on a woman's body for a man's pleasure. They are to bring nutrients in oneness. We still connect body to body, baby and myself. You connect and latch onto my breast. I feed you. I'm the one keeping you alive, giving you life ongoing. Think about that. I've birthed you. I've given you life once to sustain you in life. In the first part of your life, you feed from my breast. I am keeping you alive. A man can't do that. I am sustaining you in your life. I'm keeping you alive until you are bigger, more developed, old enough to learn how to be human and sustain yourself. The oneness in physical oneness continues for a period of time in order to develop and get used to acclimate what divine masculine energy is. Separation is a very traumatic thing to experience. Why do you think the toxic separation causes nothing but trauma on the whole fucking planet? To all beings, to animals, to nature, to women, to children, to men. Of course, it destroys men too, right? Think about this. So from infancy, post-birth, what we've done in our societies is take the goddamn baby away from mom, whisk them off, and they go sleep in another fucking room in some bassinet. What are we doing? Oneness, that physical separation, is traumatic. It takes a period of time to live simultaneously in physical oneness and physical separation simultaneously with mom, the creator, the one who created and birthed you. That is supposed to be a very divine and delicately handled relationship and experience, because what's happening is that baby, I don't care if it's an animal, for the most part, most animals, if it's an animal, if it's human, that baby, think about that, is always attached to mom, is supposed to be, for a long period of time, while the divine masculine energy, while you're maturing into the divine masculine, which is maturing into the independence of being separate from, for a period of time. So let this sink in. When we incarnate here on earth, we are separate divinely, divine masculine. We are separate from source creator while we're in human form. So I live this human life. I'm not back in my original form as the consciousness, the source, the goddess of all that is. I'm here as a human. So that separation, I'm temporarily living in this lifetime. And when I'm all done here, I go back. Okay. Now, in human form, because micro, macro, macro, micro, the creator of you, woman, I give birth to you and I nurture you and hold you and feed you from my own physical body while you grow up and learn how to acclimate to the separation of not being one with me. You're developing independence. That's divine masculine. You're developing the ability to live as a separate being apart from me. And you're supposed to be learning that from divine parents, plural. We'll get to that. Divine parents are supposed to be teaching that to you, teaching you how to be human, independent, being able to take care of yourself and work with others as a team in the household. Well, here's how we learn how to be human here. Here's how we learn how to cook and take care of ourselves and bathe ourselves and get dressed all on our own and move away from me so you can live your own independent life out there. You're not supposed to be attached to my breast until the day you fucking die. Right? So macro, micro, micro, macro. We're supposed to be nurturing this divine separation with children to teach them to be independent and live on their own and be able to take care of themselves. That doesn't mean exclusion of. It means divine independence, maturity to learn how to be human and live this miraculous human lifetime, who can live in oneness while simultaneously living in divine separation. So oneness, feminine, always includes the divine separation. It can't not. It's all together. We're living, two truths can be present. That's a quantum physics superposition. It's called superposition. Both exist at the same time. Divine separation and oneness exist simultaneously together. But when we go down a toxic route of disconnection, not the way of connection, disconnected from the creator, which is goddess, the creator, which is feminine, the creator, which is woman on the planet, when we disconnect from that, that's where you go down a very dark, lonely, look at, men have a loneliness problem, right? There's an epidemic of man's loneliness. Well, maybe fucking connect to your goddamn feminine. Like, heal yourselves and grow up and elevate into oneness, because you're only in your fucking loneliness and devastation without having free access to women like you're entitled to it. So men that are experiencing that are going through a dark night of the soul, which they've created for themselves because they live in toxic separation, patriarchy versus oneness, duality. We're opposites. No, we're not. We're different while simultaneously being the same. Isn't that interesting? Because that's feminine, that's oneness. That's oneness. When you separate from that and you go have the experience, which you feel free to go have, but look at the misery that it creates for you and everybody else that has to deal with you. That's the toxic level. That's the unconscious, unawakened level of masculine energy, toxic separation.
Now, I realized I had no idea, really what a man was a couple of years ago on this path. And then, obviously, learning from you, I realized the only way to get to truly understand what divine masculine is through the feminine energy. And then in comes all of the conditioning and the brainwashing, as we mentioned, from patriarchy. And so the only way for us to get back to, as men, what we truly are is by honoring and embracing the feminine part that lives within us.
Yes.
But then we're conditioned so heavily externally to not do that. And that has in the past created so much internal confusion, because it's like, well, I'm supposed to be this thing according to society, but this thing has led me down this very dark place, and I want to be a divine being, but what does that even mean? What does that even look like?
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, if I have to find within myself, well, what do I need to wake up to? What programs am I running? How am I blocking myself from being able to hear that? And I think there's a lot of people that will listen to this, and especially men, and they're going to get triggered into, because this was me for a little bit, like, oh, well, if men, if that's what divine masculine is, then are men inferior? And that is obviously, that's just a program. But that whole inferiority complex is what has created men wanting to make women inferior so that they
You
can be
got it.
superior. And then there's this
Exactly.
whole dynamic that we have to work through to just be able to receive what it is that you're teaching, because otherwise it just gets filtered through. Well, she's saying that men are less than women because women are oneness and men aren't. It's like, no, that's not what Rachel's saying at all.
Never
It's
said it
just
once.
right. But when we run those programs,
Yes.
that's what we're going to hear. So
Exactly.
if there's anyone listening to this that like can't wrap their head around it, just get out of your head, do the work, come study with us, learn from Rachel, learn the ways, honor the amazing women that are here to lead us to the new earth. Because as Rachel said, and I feel this to the bottom of my heart, men are not going to lead us there. Men are not going to be able to get us to the place of understanding what divine feminine energy is. And the leaders of the new earth are not going to be men. They're going to be enlightened, powerful women. So if you want to get there as a man, if you want to dissolve all of these programs that I'm working on doing, it starts with honoring the feminine and honoring women and learning from them, because they're the only ones that are going to get us there. Plain and simple. They're the only ones that
Yeah.
can do it.
And you know what's interesting? We're so ingrained to not do that because of patriarchy and the upside down world that men will immediately say, well, what about me? Well, where's my place? You're still in the male centric, bro. Right there. It's like as soon as you feel inferior, and you said it so beautifully, Danny, massive collective macro programs of inferiority run through men. That's why they dominate. That's why they control. That's why they intimidate. That's why they bully. That's why I own you. I control you. I can have whatever I want. I'll have 50 women for like that disgusting bro behavior, and all the incel behavior of that you think you're owed a woman's body. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Talk about dishonoring. You don't have rights to anything when it comes to that. Right? But that's our low level of consciousness. But it also is the projection of inferiority programs are people who behavior program of superiority always is an internal emotional program and mental program of inferiority playing itself out. And that's
Yeah.
what's so funny.
Yeah, and you gave a teaching recently on people who dominate and oppress and all these things. It's because they fear the power,
Yes.
right? And this had me thinking, because when I was listening to your teaching on this, you had spoken about how women are the physical embodiment of the creator herself,
Yes.
right? And immediately I was like, oh, men are going to be like, so I'm not a part of the creator? You're
Yep.
saying that I'm not creator? And it's like, that's how
That's
gone
right
you are.
there. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so here's the challenge. Men who are trying to heal and evolve, I know this can be challenging. We can't you literally cannot comprehend anything past what divine masculine is versus what we're offering here. You cannot comprehend any other teachings that I could teach you and give you the education of. You can't comprehend it when you haven't yet evolved enough to not have the knee-jerk reaction. What about me? What about me? I'm not misogynistic, but what about me? Rachel teaches about feminine and oneness. What about me? Where does that leave masculine? Think about the immature, entitled, selfish, I'm the center of the universe, egomaniac, fucking emotional, fragile baby you are. When your only strongest reaction is, what about me and men? Oh my God, you men have had the planet for fucking centuries, bro. Back the fuck up, dial it down. Your time is over for all the toxicity and the selfishness and the disconnection from oneness. The toxic separation is over. If you can't even handle that, let me tell you what you have to look forward to in the months and years to come. Nothing but fucking torturous hell. And that is your own doing. Nobody's doing it to you, bro. You're creating that reality and you're playing it out because of your rigidity, your domination, your self-importance, right? And that male centric, we are the center of the fucking, everything has to include men. What about men? What are you talking about? There's nothing but men all over the fucking planet ruining everything. You had your shot. It's time for healing and elevation. And if you don't want to, that's okay. I'm not going to judge you for it, but you're going to be fucking miserable because the time is over. There's no winning this war anymore. The spiritual war, if you want to really break it down, that the spiritual war we're in is toxic separation masculinity versus feminine oneness. That's what the spiritual evil versus, good. It's really a toxic, dark, masculine separation versus the feminine. It is a God world, male-centric God, where we dominate and own and rape and pillage and all the things that we do, compared to goddess world of oneness. It is God versus goddess. And guess what? When it's God versus goddess, God is always going to fucking lose because it's a made-up entity of bullshit and lies. Goddess will always prevail. But you want to know what is built into goddess? Because we are in oneness. We are one. Goddess is oneness itself. The way of patience, the way of surrender, to flow with you immature little children having to play all this evil, dark shit out for so long as you need to, until you wake up and learn your fucking lessons. Goddess has the patience built in because she's one. She is oneness itself. She is oneness herself. She has the patience. She has the way of surrender. She has the way of compassion. Because of that, she waits patiently for you to fuck everything up in order to wake up and realize you're so miserable and you've been in suffering for so long that you're going to choose. Because in the way of honoring, I honor the choice of life in independence and divine separation that you have chosen. You've gotten lost down the path of toxic separation, of duality, of creating hell on earth. But in the way of honoring, I honor your choices because I've also created free will choice. That is what oneness is. I honor where you're at. I'm not going to interfere in that. If you want to choose that path, choose that path. And when you're ready to come back home, you're ready to come back home to the awakening of oneness, of what feminine creator goddess actually is. And you can never become that and realize that and learn from that and be led by her if you're not willing to heal that first within yourself.
I have tears, literally. Hits so deeply. Okay. I have to really allow that to integrate. Let's move on to part 2, because holy crap.
Good place to stop.
That was the mic drop. Whew. Beautiful.
Good place to stop.
Yeah. So to anybody out there, if you're interested in learning true spiritual education like this, Master Self University, we are officially a metaphysical school, and we are kickstarting our spring semester. So please visit us at Master Self University and take classes to learn on topics like this. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.